everybody, James teacher here, and today we're moving on to Guns, Germs, and Steel, chapter 13, which is really fabulous. Today we're taking a look at the first 50% of the chapter. So we're going to have a little look at the main ideas in this chapter. So here we have Guns, Germs, and Steel, Necessity's Mother, chapter 13, the first 50%. This book is amazing because it teaches you big ideas, and that's what we really care about. We care about big ideas when we're studying history and sociology, because ideas shape the world, they shape history, and that's what we're going to take a look at today. Now, the first part of the chapter talks a little bit about answering this question: why did most of the inventions that changed the world, or everybody knows about, happen in Europe rather than places like Australia or Sub-Saharan Africa? So why are there no famous Sudanese inventors that we read about in history books? And it's an interesting question. First part of the chapter talks about some of the randomness behind this, and also the importance of inventions and inventors. So if we take a little look at our first little section, we're talking about European ingenuity, because if you ask a European, oh my goodness, where did these inventions come from? They might say, you know what, it's because we're incredibly intelligent. Europeans are just born intelligent. It's nonsense. They are not. I'm from the UK, and I wasn't born more intelligent than somebody from Sudan or from Ethiopia or from Australia, although maybe, no. We are equal. We're all given the same brains. So this idea of European ingenuity being one of the biggest reasons why inventions came from there is total nonsense. So let's cross that off. Oh no, red is, no, we need red for effect. So let's just cross that off. Maybe, well, in fact, no, let's keep the last bit. Maybe we want some ingenuity, but it's got nothing to do with being European, as Jared Diamond explains. It's a little bit more about luck and chance and resources, which we'll get into more in the next video. But why did most monumental inventions in history emerge from European nations, not in Australia or Sub-Saharan Africa? It's not because we are smarty pants. So sorry, kid, it's got nothing to do with you. You've got lots of books. Nice job. I'm sorry. No, there are other reasons for these inventions to emerge from this region of the world. If we take a look, we can see we have a wonderful example, okay? Because one of the big ideas that we're talking about here is this idea that invention leads to invention. This is a really key idea, okay? So if we take this example of this beautiful little dog over here, oh my goodness, it's absolutely beautiful. The British Bulldog has evolved to look so wonderful and sublime. And it's got a bit of a dodgy tooth. You can see right down here, it's got to come out. So if we invent something called a dog tooth extractor, and this dog tooth extractor will pet and stroke this fine dog to relax it, to lull it into a sense of tranquility and peace. And then it takes the tooth out, this dangerous tooth that is decaying. Well, what a fantastic idea. Human beings also love to be stroked, like this gentleman over here, with no skin or muscle or anything. But he loves to be stroked. So why can't we adapt our dog tooth extractor for this gentleman? And therefore, we can adapt something for humans. It used to say dog on the side, but now we can just put human tooth extractor on the side, and we can adapt it. This is one of the key ideas in the chapter, that one invention can lead to another invention, which is really key. If we take a look at the example here, we have Edison's phonograph. The awful reason it was invented by Edison, or one of the awful reasons, was to create a device to listen to people's dying words. Oh my goodness, Thomas, come on, you got to lighten up a little bit. We don't want to record people's dying words as much as you think that's important. So naturally, people adapted it. They found a use for this technology, and they started to play music. They started to record music, and it turned into the basic components of a jukebox. Edison wasn't too happy about this because he wanted to invent only serious things with serious functions. But human beings love music. So suddenly we take a phonograph invented for one reason and it turns into something entirely different, which is cool. But Thomas wasn't happy, although eventually he accepted it. If we move on, we have the idea of copycat inventions, which kind of similar to what we just talked about with Edison's idea, the phonograph being turned into a jukebox. But in this case, we can take a look at some other things. So in the pictures, in the images, you can see steam-powered locomotion, which is such an important idea in the Industrial Revolution. The idea of using steam to power these massive machines allowed the world economy to change. It allowed ships to sail across the oceans in record time. It changed everything. And when you ask people who invented the steam engine, I guarantee 99 out of 100 people will say, oh my goodness, James Watt, that smarty pants, that genius, he invented the steam engine. Did he really invent the steam engine? No, he adapted the steam engine. He was a bit of a copycat. James, you shouldn't cheat, because really 57 years before that, Thomas Newcomb had already invented the steam engine. So essentially, James Watt was taking an existing idea and he was adapting it for a new purpose. Not that complicated, really. You're not inventing the idea. You're just looking for an idea that's already there and you adapt it, you improve it. Just like the first automobiles. The first automobile, I forget the guy's name, but his name was Otto. He invented a 7-foot tall car engine. So imagine driving around with a 7-foot tall car engine until a guy called Daimler came along, who actually, you can see Daimler vans and trucks driving around the world. He came along and he made it smaller. That's it. So who invented it? Well, maybe the guy who had the 7-foot tall engine invented it, but sometimes the person who adapts it becomes famous. Now, here we move on. We are thinking about the third main idea in this first part of the chapter, which is about the idea of tinkering. Tinkering, just messing about with technology to improve it, to discover new things. So over on the left, you can see my father many, many years ago, although he didn't have a beard, and he's thinking about what to tinker with because he's a bored man and he is just restless. Should he invent an underpants folder? Actually quite useful. Should he invent a cheese massager to make the cheese lovely and delicious and juicy? Or should he invent organic biodegradable shoelaces? All three, of course, are absolutely terrible ideas. All of my dad's ideas were absolutely terrible. He tinkered and tinkered and tinkered, but usually that meant he just broke my toys when he tried to fix them. So don't trust my dad if you have a broken toy. However, when you search back through history, you will see examples, and this is what Jared Diamond mentions in the chapter, about stuff like glass. Well, what is glass? Glass is essentially melted sand and limestone. So people discovered when they had fires and a bit of limestone and sand got mixed together, what emerged at the bottom was this transparent, shiny surface, which gave people the idea to create glass. They figured it out, they tinkered, and then they figured it out. If you take like a gunpowder, well, gunpowder is essentially another tinkering invention. The Chinese were inventing things like fireworks, and naturally, when you figured out how to fire a rocket, you would figure out how to create gunpowder. Wonderful story of a Chinese inventor, I forget his name, who tried to go to space. And he asked his helpers to strap rockets, basically giant fireworks, to his chair. And he decided, I'm going to go to the moon on my chair, covered in fireworks. So they put him in his chair. He lit the fuses. Everybody ran away, and when they turned around, they heard a huge boom, and the guy had disappeared. Two theories about where he went. Theory A is that he went to the moon, which is in some parts of China. I wouldn't want to say all of China. Some places in China say that the crater on the moon is caused by this guy landing on the moon, although he had no spacesuit. So, I mean, he died immediately. But the second theory is he just blew up into tiny pieces, like all good scientists and experimenters used to in the past. They just blew up. Even if we talk about the idea of bread, think about the idea of bread. For the longest time, bread was flat. If you go to Lebanon, for example, Lebanese flatbread is very, 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 very famous and very delicious. And it's flat, it doesn't rise until somebody discovered the idea of yeast. And this yeast allowed this bread to rise, giving rise, oh, I didn't mean to say that, giving rise to bread, which is crusty and fluffy and delicious. People tinkered. People tinker with something, they have an idea, and they try to develop it. So it helps us to understand. Even if we take a look at this example of some bendy buildings right here, well, why were bendy buildings invented? We'll take a look at the tree. The tree bends in the wind. If there's a hurricane wind, it bends. If there's an earthquake, it will not just stay in one rigid fixed position because it will snap. Same with our buildings. We tried to build them really tall, and then an earthquake happened and they fell over. We built another one, and then the wind blew really hard and then it fell over. So in the end, we discovered and we realized that having some flexibility in a building allows it to withstand the pressures and the forces of nature far better. Almost everything is tinkered with and developed over time to improve. Beautiful tree. So in conclusion, we can say main ideas, part one, first 50%, remember, from chapter 13, is that innovations have been shaped by adaptations. Usually, a new invention is not a new invention. A new invention is something that was created previously and then was adapted for a new purpose. Basically, we are huge copycats, which is our second main idea right here. We are huge copycats. We love to copy what's already been invented. And if you think about this, it starts to form a chain of dominoes of cause and effect. One invention leads to another invention. And finally, of course, we love to tinker, just like my dad with the cheese massager. We love to tinker. We love to develop things. We love to pick stuff up and figure out a new use for it. This is part of human nature. Human nature is to develop solutions and then improve solutions gradually over time. Now we live in a world where these things happen so quickly because of technology. In the past, it took 100 years or 200 years or 1,000 years, but everything accelerated. And hopefully, the second part of the chapter is going to give us another little explanation about, well, this happened in Europe and it happened in Asia and it happened in Arabia, but why did it not happen in sub-Saharan Africa? Weren't people tinkering? Weren't people copying inventions? Well, we're going to take a look because the geographical limitations of those parts of the world could have something to do with it. A little bit of a spoiler for the next class. But I will see you guys for the next video. In the meantime, keep thinking, because remember, it's history. And history requires lots and lots and lots of inquisitiveness. So keep thinking.